These two cases are called Montech Air 100 ARGB. Montech is a brand I was not familiar with until very recently, but it has existed for 5 or 6 years. Seems to be fairly new to the UK, however. These two cases cost respectively £52 and £57. You pay a premium of £5 for white, and they come with 4 ARGB 120mm fans. Montech is at pains to state these are DC controlled fans rather than Molex power that just sit there churning away at full speed. And you get tempered glass. That sounds like an awful lot of hardware. However, you can go down the scale and buy the light version of these cases with 2 non-ARGB fans, in which case you'll be paying £41 and £46 for the black and white versions. A budget micro ATX case priced below £60 is not unusual, but a case with tempered glass, 4 ARGB fans and promises of huge amounts of airflow for less than £60, that is quite a set of promises, and it fills me with hope. Let's lose the white case, and I'm going to do a peel on the black case. But before I do that, have you subscribed to Kit Guru? Ring the bell, subscribe, join the channel, head over to Discord, Facebook, Twitter, doubtless some other form of social media. Do it, it'll make me happy. The peel. Looks like a tinted panel. We've got this little plastic handle here to open the magnetically retained door. Lifts off. Yep, mild tint on that glass, and we have clear glass on the white case. The hinge pins are equal length, which means in that traditional style that fiddling it back on means you have to get both of them lined up simultaneously, which is always doable, and there we go. Takes 2 or 3 goes. Slightly annoying. Unequal length hinge pins, always better, adds very slightly to the cost. What have we got? Magnetic dust filter inside the top of the case. Magnetically retained front filter. That's nifty. So the tangs that engage with the front of the frame are part of the mesh material bent out as little tabs. Neat. There we have the front fans. If you want to pull off the frame for some reason to expose the fans fully, then that pops off nice and easily. It's not a huge pull, but it's not going to fall off on its own. All feels quite solid, and again, unusual. The frames of the fans are perforated. So we've got perforations down the side, perforations in the fan frames, loads of perforations there. Back panel, plain steel, thumb screws, pull it away, non-captive thumb screws. All looks very conventional. Got Velcro straps for cable management, 2 SSD bays, what looks like a single drive bay, but the spec says it supports 2 3.5-inch hard drives or SATA SSDs. And in addition to the cabling for the front I/O, we have the ARGB hub for those 4 fans. It has 4 connection points. You can't add extra ARGB fans to that hub. That SATA power is to power the hub. Front I/O on the top, power reset, 2 Type A USB 3s, 1 Type A USB 2, and headset jacks. No Type C, which is no surprise at all on a budget case. Power supply air filter is one of these fairly horrible little clippy-in-y screen things. So filtered, but fiddling that in and out when you've got a built PC, that wouldn't be the greatest. And then we come to this drive bay. So there's a thumb screw there, which is tight. And we remove the thumb screw. And it doesn't move because there are 2 more screws in the bottom of the case. And now we can pull the power out. There are two installation positions. You can see by those thumb screw holes. This was previously in that front position, so you can move it back by, call it an inch, or if you're working in metric, 20-25 mm. And here we have a little bit of a conundrum. Support two drives. One caddy, which has the accessories tied in place. Accessories being some screws and some cable ties. So yes, indeed, one 3.5-inch hard drive or one 2.5-inch drive. To install the second drive, you're putting it directly on that drive tower, which looks at first glance like penny pinching, because if it's a slightly taller tower, had a second caddy would clearly increase costs and then it'd be much easier installing your drive. On the other hand, you've already got two 2.5-inch bays. You can add a third drive there. You've got M.2. Realistically, how many people doing a micro ATX budget build need two bulk storage drives, which is what it would be with 3.5 inches? So I've not seen that approach before, but I have to say it makes sense. When it comes to cooling, we've got the three 120 fans at the front and the one 120 fan at the rear, so clearly we could just put an air tower on the processor and have done with it. In terms of liquid cooling, we can put a 240 or 280 rad at the front or a 240 rad in the roof. If we're going to put 280 in the front, given we've got 120 fans, that will get a bit peculiar. I think given how neat the fan arrangement is, it would make sense in the first instance to go the easy route and put a 240 AIO in the roof. Here's the hardware I've lined up for the build: an MSI Mag B560M Micro ATX motherboard, which supports Core i5-11600K. We've got 32 gigabytes of Corsair Vengeance LPX 3600 to back up the processor, and a Sabrent Rocket 4.0 SSD. Cooling: Fractal Celsius Plus S24 Prism, so loads of RGB, and a 240mm Ace Tech, which will tell you whether or not your cooler's like to fit inside the Montech case. Graphics: I may have gone a little overboard here. It's a Sapphire Radeon RX 6800 XT, but this case promises good airflow and it supports full-length graphics cards, so that's going to be a stiff enough test. And finally, the power supply is from Montech. The Century 850 watt gold, fully modular, sells in the US for about $100. I cannot yet find it on sale in the UK, so this will be a new one for me. And there we have the hardware ready to go inside the Montech Air 100. As the specification says, fully modular power supply. Let's plug in the bits and pieces we're going to need for sure. And we'll put that with the fan down. Cable management: the EPS cable's going to the top of the board. No grommets, they just go straight up the back of the motherboard tray. Actually, that makes sense. So we don't have any cable management here to speak of. On the other hand, the cables aren't being trailed across the SSD mounts or the RGB hub, because logically you'd be going like so, and you're behind a plain steel panel, so that's no problem. So we've got a couple of cable tie points here and here. Actually, that is entirely logical. If you're after scintillating commentary, sorry about that. Et voila. According to the user guide, these screws here are the correct screws for the motherboard standoffs. I've offered up a couple of the screws because I'm sick and tired of getting screws locked into motherboard standoffs, and to me they don't work, so I'm using the other screws, the 16 screws, which are intended for SSD installation. Which I guess is my way of saying if the motherboard falls out during this video, it's all on me. I'm going to connect cables and then it's time for the Fractal CPU cooler. That's looking a bit tidier. Okie dokie, we're all ready for the Fractal cooler in the roof of the case. And then we can fire it up and have RGB galore. Tim already applied. This is the first time this cooler has been out of the box. Connecting the RGB header from the Fractal cooler to the RGB header at the top of the board is a fiddle, and honestly that's the reason why I typically put a cooler in the front of the case rather than the roof, because putting a cooler up top covers so many good bits that you need access to. Here we go. Big beefy graphics card. All the space in the world. I could have practically thrown it across the room and it would have landed. Then knockout tabs for the expansion slot, so I have to get 2 screws out of the accessory pack. Details, details. Right, let's run those into place. And that's a PC. As you can see, the PC's running. If you look really closely a couple of minutes ago when I was plugging in the power to the graphics card, you may have spotted one of the 2 pins. They're both 8 pins, so 6+2, 6+2. One of the 2 pins, I got it wrong. Not connected correctly, and as we know, modern graphics cards don't say something useful on the screen like they used to, such as, "Connect your power, you idiot." They just don't give you an output. So I had no output, and I went around the houses figuring that one out. Got there. And then I had problems with RGB. Now, as you can see, I'm on a breathing pink pattern. You can see all the fans are in sync, so clearly it's working. MSI's control center software for the motherboard, and you have to add Mystic Light as a download. Et voila. The thing is, I had the Fractal lighting under control instantly. The Montech lighting, which after all is the feature of this blooming review, was not doing any good whatsoever, and I did not understand it. Then I twigged that despite the manual being no help whatsoever, the reset button on the I/O panel is actually a lighting control button. What it says in the manual is this: the ARGB fans can sync with motherboard. This is quite true. I have the ARGB connector connected. However, you have to press the button on the top to change. You can manually control the lighting, so you can go through different colors and different patterns, and you have to work out which combination of short and long presses puts you into ARGB motherboard software control mode, which is where I am now at. It took me quite a while to figure it out, despite the fact I've done this a great many times. The manual did not help. If this is your first time working with ARGB and control software, I think you're going to struggle. Montech, you've done me no favours whatsoever here. Right, I'm going to sort out fan control and then I'm going to do some thermal testing. We've reached the end of the review, and in celebration, I've put the lighting in marquee just to show you I'm feeling all cheerful and chirpy. Temperature testing. This is Time Spy stress test, so analogous to gaming. Our Core i5-11600K running at 4.6 GHz all cores hit a maximum 75 watts power draw. Clearly if you're doing Blender or something, the CPU works harder. 61 degrees Celsius. The graphics card, the RX 6800 XT, was running at 78 Celsius, which is exactly what we expect to see for that graphics card. System power draw at the wall socket, 425 watts. The fans are running at 1200 RPM. Ambient is 22 degrees Celsius. Thermals, no problem whatsoever. What do I think of the Montech Air 100 ARGB? Frankly, for the money, I think it's something short of a miracle. It's really impressive. That's provided, obviously, you can buy it for this one is £52. It was the white one that was 57. Yes, that's correct. £52. Yeah, I mean, rush out and buy one immediately, if not sooner. If, on the other hand, the price goes up to, say, 70, then you've got competition from other brands. But for this sort of money, I can't think of another case quite like it on the market. It's not perfect. I mean, it's a cheap case. The build quality is absolutely fine, but certain bits and pieces, such as when you put the graphics card in place, you have to kind of yank it up a bit against the bracket to make sure that the cable connections are not obscured by the metalwork, little things like that. My complaints about the case, so number one would actually be that the manual, which is quite basic but passable, doesn't explain the modes for the RGB button, and hence I said it was a reset button and blah blah blah. Beyond that, it's minor things such as the power supply filter is fiddly, the hinge pins here are equal lengths, therefore putting the door on is slightly fiddly. I've used those words a few times now, haven't I? Slightly fiddly. In other words, minor things. Now, I've taken out the drive cage because I don't need it. If you want to use a drive cage because you want to put a load of drives in this machine in addition to the 2.5-inch SSDs and M.2, for example, and you want 1 or 2 hard drives, then you'd do well to use a compact power supply rather than a full-length, fully modular power supply, for example. Creating enough space for all the cables and drives, you'll have to work at it, but it is doable. I've gone for the bigger power supply, as supplied by Montech, and I've taken out the cage just because I'm being lazy, but it is doable. But all the important bits are present and correct. Clearly, it's good value for money. 4 ARGB fans, can't argue with that. You've got access to everything you need inside the case. Now, you're looking here, you can see the screw heads because I've got the 240 cooler in the roof. Obviously, I haven't got the magnetic filter on the inside. You can see it's not on the outside, so the top is now unfiltered. Clearly, this is only an issue if dust is dropping from above. It's not a problem. It doesn't look incredibly beautiful, but you can't really argue. Front I/O panel is easily accessible. It's fixed to the core chassis rather than to a removable panel. You only get one USB 2, but you get 2 USB 3s. You don't get a USB Type-C, but at this price, of course, you don't get a Type-C. What do you no, that doesn't happen. The case itself, I'm happy. This fills me with joy. Quite late on a Friday evening, admittedly, after messing around with RGB software. So overall, well done, Montech. And we look forward to seeing your next case, and the price you've given us had better be right, because that's a big part of this case's appeal even. But at £52 for the black, £57 for the white with 4 ARGB fans, yup, you've got a winner.